Now, nearly a week after the fall of the Assad regime, the swift takeover of Syria by rebel groups prompted fears for the future of the country already devastated by a long and bloody civil war. None of that was on show today, though, as huge rallies erupted across the country in celebration at the end of 5 decades of brutal dictatorship. Already dubbed Victory Friday, jubilant crowds were seen in Damascus and across Syria for the first Friday prayers of the post-Assad era. But while there is euphoria for now, attention is shifting to the problem of bringing stability to a country still plagued by divisions and with a future more uncertain than ever.
It is December, and yet Damascus has its spring at last. 13 years after their war of liberation began, today in their thousands they gathered to celebrate a victory unexpected and so all the sweeter.
In 1 week, whole Syria was freed. We really didn't expect this without any fight. They all surrendered. They're weak.
Best day of your life?
Exactly.
Earlier, there were Friday prayers like no other in the long history of the ancient Umayyad mosque. And for the first time in half a century, without the Assad family in power. Pictures of their victims, the missing, are fixed to the walls. This nation bears deep scars.
Assad fell with astonishing speed, but with the dictator gone, powerful forces have been unleashed here. And in truth, no one can say where they will lead this country.
For the moment, amid the jubilation, the horrors of the past could be forgotten.
It means a future for everything. I don't know. I can't explain my feeling, actually.
All the people are happy. You can see it easily at every face, everywhere. Children, elderly, everyone. Wow.
But the fighters who did most to overthrow Assad are Islamists. God is in charge now, this soldier tells me. They are heroes to many, but to others, dangerous hardliners, and their flag fills Syrian liberals and minority sects with trepidation. Certainly, there's no mood to forgive those who carried out the regime's dirty work. These people are criminals, this man tells me, and the law must punish them. Syria's rebel leader has ditched the military fatigues along with his military name. Now Ahmed al-Shara, he speaks with moderation. Today, calling on the people to rebuild Syria. The euphoria will fade, and perhaps it will fade quickly. But Syria is changed, and the people have a chance for something better. John Ray, News at 10, Damascus.
Well, as Syrians celebrated, America's top diplomat made an unannounced visit to Iraq as the US tries to bring stability to the Middle East. Robert is in Washington for us tonight. And Robert, the speed of this regime collapse has taken everyone, including the US, by surprise. What will Mr. Blinken be hoping to achieve?
Well, no one wants to puncture the euphoria of those ordinary Syrians. I mean, those were remarkable images there in John's report. But governments are not in the optimism business. They are making currently some pretty sort of cold, calculated assessments of their self-interest. So Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, as you say, is touring the Middle East. He wants to keep the focus on the destruction of the remnants of ISIS. The Arab League has been meeting today. They have condemned Israel's military incursions into and beyond the buffer zone on the Golan Heights, and the G7 has been meeting as well, virtually. The Prime Minister in that made clear he wants to see in Damascus a credible, inclusive and non-sectarian government. But what critically undermines Western credibility, and in particular perhaps American credibility, is the ongoing catastrophe in Gaza. I mean, the Arab world seeing a split screen, essentially, the joy in Damascus and the absolute heartbreak and continuing military assault in Gaza. So, I mean, that is definitely a sort of crisis for Western credibility. And all the time, Joe Biden's credibility, he is now the lamest of lame ducks, and he's got 37 days left in office before the world awaits the return of Donald Trump.
OK, Robert in Washington, many thanks indeed. Well, there might have been joyous scenes in Syria, but back here the story has prompted an apparent split in government between two of its most senior ministers. It comes after the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, last night appeared to criticise former Labour leader Ed Miliband, who blocked David Cameron's attempt to launch airstrikes on Syria in 2013. This morning, Miliband, now the government's energy secretary, defended his decision, saying Lord Cameron hadn't put forward a suitable exit strategy at the time. Despite that, it's led many to point to what looks like a growing rift at the heart of government.
It was a dramatic ending that many had hoped for, but few believed possible. The sudden collapse of President Bashar al-Assad's government resulted in jubilation on the streets of Syria. But questions too about whether this murderous regime could have been brought to an end years earlier, including from the Health Secretary.
Look, with hindsight, I think we can say, looking back on the events of 2013, that the hesitation of this country and the United States create a vacuum that Russia moved into and kept Assad in power for much longer.
That hesitation was in part because of this vote in Parliament after Assad used chemical weapons.
The ayes to the right, 272. The noes to the left, 285.
MPs controversially rejected taking military action after Tory rebels joined Labour, then led by Ed Miliband, in voting against.
It was about preventing a rush to war.
After Streeting's intervention, Miliband, now Energy Secretary, was forced to defend his stance on ITV's Good Morning Britain.
Do you regret that decision?
I believe that after the war in Iraq, where hundreds of British troops died and thousands were injured, we should not commit British troops to combat unless we had a clear plan. What would it involve for Britain? What was our exit strategy and how would we achieve our war aims? And I didn't believe the proposition David Cameron put on the table met that criteria.
But Ibrahim Alabi was devastated by that Commons vote, which he watched with his family in Aleppo, Syria, turning off other electrical appliances to power a small television.
The people around the world looked to the UK. The US was looking to the UK to see what to do. And his vote basically gave Assad the green light to continue bombing because it was the moment where deterrence could have been established.
He can't believe that after all the bloodshed, Miliband does not regret that decision.
It was just really absurd to hear that again and hear him saying that he stands by that vote.
For his part, Streeting insisted he wasn't criticising his colleague, arguing it was unclear how things might have unfolded back then and how they will today. Anushka Astana, News at 10.